Writing a book is hard. Every writer out there knows it. And when working on a project as time consuming as writing a novel, it can be challenging to find the time and energy to prioritize writing over other parts of our lives. In this writing vlog, I tried my hardest to prioritize writing my book over every other part of my life: my job, my social life, and even my YouTube channel. Did I end up succeeding in making my book my number one priority? Well, you're about to find out. My name is Ava. I am a writer. I am currently working on a project called Project Magnolia. I'm currently also referring to it as a horror project. We'll see if that ends up being exactly what I call it, if it ever ends up getting published way down the line. But currently, all you need to know is that it does have ghosts, it has a haunted hotel, and it's a seaside setting. And that's pretty much all I'm sharing about it at the moment because I am writing the first draft, which means that there is still lots and lots that can be changed in the future. Currently, I am 500-ish words away from hitting 40,000 total words. My current short-term goal that I'm working towards is hitting 50,000 total words before the month of August ends. I have 9 days left in the month, and I am determined to get there. If you've been following any of my recent writing vlogs, you may know that I am struggling a little bit with this project currently, although it is less that I am struggling with the project and more that I am struggling with the act of incorporating writing into my daily routine, because I have been writing extremely inconsistently. Although you could argue that I am consistent because you know what I keep doing? Writing a ton every day for, say, a week, and then going an entire week without writing a single word. And then once I finally end up sitting down and writing again, I feel like I have been completely taken out of the story and I've been struggling to sort of re-immerse myself back into the project. Mind you, I haven't even been working on this draft for a full 2 months yet, so maybe I shouldn't be making such general statements about my writing process, but it's definitely been a pattern, and it's a pattern that I am trying to break. And that is what I'm going to be focusing on in this writing vlog, is trying to write consistently, trying to write almost every day, but trying to not be so intense about it. Mind you, I am contradicting myself because I am also working towards the goal that I just mentioned. But in order to hit that goal before the month ends, I have to write about 1,100-ish words every single day. That is much more manageable than the 2,000 words that I was writing every day last month, but that was very, very intense, which was good because it made me feel like I was super immersed in the project, having such a great time with it. But I think the downside of that is that once I hit my goal last month, I then felt like I needed to take a break from writing, which is what I did for the first little bit of August. But then the thought of sitting down and writing again just became more and more daunting. And so it ended up taking me until about the middle of the month to write my first words of the month. I know that taking breaks is important and it's an inevitable part of the writing process, but I think I want to work towards taking a day or two off from writing as opposed to taking an entire week off. And I'm also trying to remind myself that it's okay if I sit down and I don't write a ton of words. I can sit down, enter my chapter, and just write a tiny bit. So enough chit chat, let's do some writing. Yeah, you see that? You see that? I hit 40K. Now, I only wrote 467 words, but I'm trying to take my own advice and not stress if I don't write a million words every single day. I haven't managed my time the greatest today because I do have to stop writing now because I do have to get ready to go to work. But I did prioritize writing because I actually wrote before going to work, which is already an accomplishment. And if I was only really letting myself write on days where I felt like I could accomplish a ton of writing, then I wouldn't have gotten anything done today. So I'm happy with the stuff I did accomplish. For the last 2 or 3 days, I have all the new writing that I've been doing has been adding stuff into the last chapter that I wrote. So I wrote it from start to finish, and then I now spent the last 2 days rereading it and adding more stuff. But that's kind of how I've been operating so far with this draft, and I think it's actually been a really good method because I've been adding so much more depth to the scenes that I've been writing. And if I had just left this chapter the way it was, it wouldn't, there's so many things that it wouldn't have ended up having or saying about the characters, about their dynamic, and about just, this chapter in particular is just really establishing where we are right now. The two characters are really just beginning to accept the situation that they found themselves in. I'm almost done getting through my second pass through of it. I literally have like a couple paragraphs left to go through, but I'm going to leave that for tomorrow me. But for now, I'm going to get up and get ready for work. Why, hello there. It is now the next day, in case you couldn't tell. Today, my plans are very similar to yesterday. I have to work once more in the evening, but unlike yesterday, I'm going to try to have a bit of a more immersive writing session. I'm going to try to not have any sort of word count expectations for myself. Instead, I'm going to try to be more focused on just getting immersed in the project. Like I was saying yesterday, I do need to finish doing my pass through of the current chapter that I'm on, and then once I'm done that, which will take me like 2 seconds, then I will start writing the next chapter. Last night, I did have an idea for an entirely new chapter, an entirely new sort of idea for something to happen that I think would be a really good addition because this whole story it's deliberately an isolated setting. Pretty much every chapter so far has been taking place inside the hotel, or there've been a few in the surrounding area because it is in a small town. But all of those scenes were closer to the beginning of the story, trying to sort of establish the town. And then the last few chapters have all pretty much just been taking place in the hotel. And there's only so many times that I can describe what the rooms look like and what the hallways like and the lobby and all of that. So I think I have an idea for how I can get a little bit of a change of location. I feel like, especially in more recent chapters, I've been realizing something about my main character, a specific trait of hers that I knew she had going into the story, but I think that with the introduction of this new sort of chapter idea, this little change in location, I think will actually be very interesting for her character because she will basically be experiencing something that she's never experienced before. And it has to do a little bit with the horror elements of the story, me trying to make things actually scary. And because this story is one that involves a hotel, there is a very strong element, again, that I've been verbalizing a lot more in recent chapters about unfamiliarity versus familiarity, and how hotels can be scary because they are an entirely unfamiliar environment. You're in an entirely different city that you may have never visited before. You're in a room. This is like verbatim what a character like said when I was writing the other day. But you're in a room, you're in a city you don't know, you're in a room you don't know, and the people surrounding you on the other side of your wall, you have no idea who those people are. But without saying too much about my main character, there is a reason why she has not necessarily been experiencing that same feeling that same scared feeling of being in an unfamiliar place and having a hard time sort of sleeping and feeling comfortable in the place, versus our like secondary character. She has been experiencing that. She feels like she's very much in an unfamiliar environment. But I think now my protagonist is going to experience that feeling, that uncomfortable feeling of not being familiar with something. So now I think I'm actually going to go and write the beginning of that new chapter that I think is going to involve the new change in location. Unfortunately, my writing session is not going the way that I wanted it to go. I feel like my mind is just in a million places. I sat down, I finished doing my pass through of my previous or current chapter, which is what you saw, and then I sat down to start writing the next chapter. And well, before that, I went to my on Scrivener, the it's like the note card option, whatever. That's what I use to plan out both my scenes and my chapters, although lately I've just been doing chapters. So I took a look at that. Basically, the way I've been operating for the last little bit is that I pretty much am planning out what chapters I'm writing, like as I'm writing them. I wrote a little description, just a couple of sentences saying what I want this next chapter to be, building off of the idea I had last night that I was talking to you about. Basically, the next chapter is going to be sort of explaining why we're moving to this new location temporarily, and then starting the little journey, the drive to get there. So I did that. I planned out what I want to write in this chapter. But then when I sat down to actually start it, I just felt like my brain was everywhere except the project, everywhere except wanting to sit down and start writing it. So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have to go to work this evening and the fact that I have to work again tomorrow. I have spoken at length about how my job has been making me feel so far this summer and how it has been causing me a lot of stress, and how I have turned to writing as a big way for me to sort of feel like I am still accomplishing something with my days, instead of like writing on the days that I do have to go to work is giving me a sense of accomplishment and feeling like I am working towards something that is not just my minimum wage job, because that's how I felt a lot last summer, was that I literally had no creative hobbies. I was pretty much exclusively going to work and then occasionally seeing my friends. So I wanted to change that this summer, hence why I started working on this project, and so far it has been really great, but there have also been lots of times when I just don't want to sit down and write because I feel like my brain is just wanting to just relax before having to go somewhere that is, requires quite a bit of mental energy. And I don't think that the headspace I'm in right now is the best for the project, for my writing. And then tomorrow, I have an even busier day planned than the day I had today, but I think I have an idea for how I can still prioritize my writing. My plan was simple: wake up, make my coffee, and immediately start writing. But then my plans for the rest of the day got cancelled. As I mentioned yesterday, I thought that my day today was going to be very busy. I thought that the only time I would have to write anything was going to be immediately in the morning after waking up, which is why that's what I started to do. And then my plans that I had with my friends got cancelled. They got pushed to tomorrow, which completely opened up the rest of my day before I have to go to work in the evening. So I decided to take a little bit more of a break. I waited probably about 3 hours before sitting back down again and fully immersing myself into my project. and I was able to get the first 1,000-ish words done for that new chapter. I like the direction we're going in. I was having a pretty good time, but I think I'm just going to call my writing there because I'm once again feeling a little bit weird today, and I'm happy with the writing that I did, and I'm even more happy that I have lots of time today to sort of chillax before having to go to work again for the third day in a row. Tomorrow, I have a much needed day off, so I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of writing I can do when I don't have to stress about going to work. I have some potentially not very surprising news for you. It has now been several days since I last updated you, and several days since I last wrote any words. I think it may have been a tad overambitious of me to try and film this writing vlog at the end of August, knowing that I was working almost every single day leading up to when my classes were starting in September. I'm currently filming this on September 1st. I am working today, I worked yesterday, I'm working tomorrow, and then on September 3rd is my first day of classes. I really think that the reason why I haven't sat down and worked on my writing project is largely due to the fact that I have been working a lot and the fact that summer is ending. And I am suddenly, in the last few days, I've been filled with this sense of like impending doom that classes are about to start and that I am suddenly not going to be able to do any writing at all, and that my classes are just going to completely consume the entirety of my time, and that I'm not going to be able to work on this project anymore, and that I'm just going to spend all of that time thinking, oh my goodness, why didn't I write more during the summer? Why did I barely write anything in August? But I really do think that if I make the time to write, in addition to my school and my job still, but albeit working at a much lower pace than I have been during the summer, I think I will still be able to finish this project. Obviously, that's how writing projects work. You have to make the time, but I'm just going to focus on the future. My goal for the month of September, I am going to try and write every single day. I'm going to try to have a 30-day writing streak. Just the act of opening up my project, finding a little sliver of time in my day just to show to myself that I have that commitment to this long-term project that I'm working on. I think that is what I'm going to be focusing on in September, and I think ultimately that is what I need to focus on right now, with the big change in my schedule being going back to having my classes. And I think that's what I want to focus on more than word counts, is just trying to continue working on this project day after day after day and just make it a part of my everyday routine, hopefully. If you would like to come along and join me on my writing journey, continuing to work on this project, then please subscribe. There will be plenty of writing vlogs in the future, I'm sure. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.